This podcast is brought to you by the Texas Hill Country River region in Uvalde County. What's super unique about this area is that the Frio, Nueces, and Sabinal rivers are all located in the same county. It's like the hill country that you know and love, but really rural, so you're surrounded by wildlife. And life just kind of slows down out here, so you can enjoy the simple pleasures like campfires and fishing and just enjoying the company of the people that you love.
Go to visituvalde.com for more info. Buenos dias, everyone. Welcome back to another episode, the In Between Podcast. I'm Jake.
And I'm Leah.
And today we have Don Davies with Hill Country Alliance. Welcome, Don.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time out to do this. We truly appreciate it, and we hope that we can learn from whatever you're willing to share with our listeners and with us. You just did a presentation this morning at the Hill Country, no, not the Hill Country Alliance. What am I thinking? That's you. At the Texas Hill Country River Region Visitor Center with Cassie. You coordinated that with her and put that on this morning, and we had a good little group there.
It was a great group. There was a lot that we discussed and a lot that came out of it that I did not expect. And I think we're on track to do some real... make some real change here.
We had people leaving the meeting like, all right, so I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to call this person. I'm going to call that person. We're going to set this up. So that's, what more can you ask for?
Not really
at a
much.
First meeting?
No, that was unexpected. And when it happens organically, that's just more proof that this is something that needs to happen in the community and that there's people that are willing to get behind it and support it.
Yeah.
So I want to know I know what you do. But I want to know how you got here, where are you from, and how you got here, basically, and then go from there.
It's kind of a circuitous route. I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area. I was born and raised there, and from a very young age was just absolutely enthralled with the night sky. I think like every young child of my generation, wanted to learn about the stars and become an astronaut with NASA and, go up in the space shuttle. And fortunately, I didn't take that route because we don't have a space shuttle program, at least hadn't until recently. And then my life kind of took a different direction. I remained interested in the sciences, but also got interested in the environment and in things like permaculture. So my educational background is actually in cultural sustainability and environmental design. But when I had an opportunity to sort of open up my schedule to a little bit more volunteer activity, I got very involved in my local astronomy society in Austin, where I've been on the board for over a decade now, and sort of fell in love with outreach, with educating people and sharing my passion for the night skies with other folks. And of course, with that came, the education of light pollution and how challenging it can be for astronomers to observe the night sky when we have all this artificial light protruding into our space. And so a little bit back, shortly after COVID, I got involved in a newly formed group in Travis County, the Travis County Friends of the Night Sky, that was run and being supported by Hill Country Alliance. And shortly after that, a position opened up for a night sky program manager. And I jumped on it. And it's amazing. It's phenomenal. I work with the most remarkable people who are, set on a mission to do nothing but improve this beautiful landscape and retain its pristine nature in every aspect. So that's sort of the long and the short of it.
Yeah, so the Hill Country Alliance, you are the night sky coordinator?
Program manager.
Program manager.
So we have 4 programmatic areas. So we focus on preservation and education in land preservation, water, community, and so I get to work in night skies. So I get to help build and support groups like the one that seems to be forming here in Uvalde County today, to help educate their own communities, to work with city officials in passing night sky friendly lighting ordinances, educating youth, and just overall bringing attention to the issue of light pollution because it's not widely talked about. It's not as common as the other forms of pollution. So that's sort of my day in and day out. And I get to travel to beautiful places like Konkan and all across the hill country to meet with folks that are like-minded and want to find and learn ways to help preserve their night skies.
And that is, as you mentioned, the Hill Country Alliance. It's at 4 different areas, correct? And it is an excellent resource for folks who do live in the Hill Country to visit your website and learn more, not just about dark skies, education, but all the other areas as well. I found it there's so much information on there, and so much work has been done already. And yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all do try to help out other groups who are dealing with issues with development, like water effluent being poured into creeks and whatnot. And that's something that y'all do try to help out and correct.
Absolutely, yes. So when it comes to, water issues, whether it's, working with individual landowners or other like-minded organizations and nonprofits, the Hill Country Alliance really seems to be sort of a hub of information, and we help sort of act as a conduit to not necessarily directly work with a group and show them what they need to do. I mean, if that's in our wheelhouse, we will, but a lot of the times it's connecting other groups and connecting other partners and growing what has actually become a Hill Country network. That is actually one other aspect of the work we do, which is the Hill Country Conservation Network, which is over 40 partners now that are working together in all aspects. So whether it's water conservation, pristine streams, working with landowners to establish, environmental easements, working with developers to ensure that they're not pulling directly from the rivers or that they're not building in an area that would compromise, native species. Pretty much if it has anything to do with our natural environment, we are involved in one way or another.
Yeah. And I think I'm so grateful for y'all because there's a lot that y'all do. And when I discovered y'all, and I think there's a lot of people who don't know about y'all, especially people who do live in the hill country alone, but also on a state level, a lot of people in Texas are not aware of y'all. Because I think some of the stuff that y'all do doesn't just apply for the hill country. It can apply to other parts of Texas, even across the world, really. But yeah, I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, and I'm glad you brought up some of that stuff because Hill Country Alliance does have a lot of information. The work that y'all are doing is phenomenal, and it's work that I believe in, and I'm hoping that at least one person maybe listening will look it up or will be able to make a connection just from listening to this podcast. But aside from the Dark Night Skies presentations that you do and education, you're also very involved in the astronomy part of it, which right now there's a lot of planning going on, and I know Hill Country Alliance and you specifically have been leading a meetings, was it quarterly meetings for eclipse planning?
Yes.
Correct. How's that been? And
it's been exciting. Like? It's been eye-opening for me, just being genuinely interested in astronomy and in these types of phenomena and activities, and having observed my first total eclipse in 2017 and knowing that, Austin and the Hill Country was going to be right in the path just a short while later, I was already genuinely invested. And so it's been great having this be part of my work that I do. And so we've had quarterly roundtable meetings going since October of 2020, and we've got over 24 counties involved in preparing, because this is something that, is rare for most people to experience. A lot of folks could go their whole life never seeing a total solar eclipse. And it's the type of event that draws a tremendous crowd to the path of totality, so where one can actually see the full experience. And we're anticipating a lot of folks coming here in April of 2024, because it's just prime weather We've got wildflowers blooming. We've got the bluebonnets out. We're at the middle of peak bird migration, which is huge for birders and nature lovers alike. So I anticipate a tremendous amount of folks choosing the hill country to experience that phenomena. And so it's involved a lot of preparation and getting folks aware that it's going to happen and educating them and providing them with all the resources we can so that they know how much of a draw there's going to be on their own local resources for their already existing residents who will be here, whether it's involving emergency management, getting information out to hotels and lodging accommodations such as the Inn, which is on the path of totality, and getting you all prepared for the onslaught of guests, and down to just education and making sure that, you know, any school child that is on the path of totality on April 8th, 2024 has an opportunity to experience that for themselves. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it's a tremendous opportunity, and it's a wonderful group of folks that have become involved and really actively engaged in preparing for it.
So if I'm listening to this right now, hearing you talk about it in your round table meetings and wanting to get involved, what's the best way to either get more information or get involved? Where would you suggest people to go? Is it the HCA website? Okay.
So we have an eclipse portal on the HCA website, and that's accessible from the sort of header. It would be, you know, emailing us at info@hillcountryalliance.org and just saying, hey, I want to get involved, and getting you on our mailing list. And that way you'll be informed about all of our meetings, all of the information that goes out, and just any bit of education we can provide folks. So we try to keep everybody as informed as possible, but that's probably the best way to go about doing so.
Which would be good because you got to experience it firsthand in 2017. What was that like? Can you share with us what some of your experience?
It was incredible. So I had experienced, you know, partial solar eclipses and partial and total lunar eclipses, but that was my first total. And I think I knew what to expect from a scientific aspect, knowing why they happen, knowing how often they happen. You know, I went with several of my friends and fellow associates from the Austin Astronomical Society. And so we were there for all the festivities that the city put on and for a conference that was ahead of it.
But where was this at?
This was in Casper, Wyoming. So it was the only state in the area that really was on that path. So the entire state of Colorado was not going to see it. So the entire state of Colorado seemed like it came up into Wyoming. There were a lot of people, a lot of activity, and I knew what to expect, and I brought equipment to safely observe it. But until you experience it, until you start seeing the light around you dim, until you start seeing a sunrise or a sunset, you know, form around you 360 degrees, you don't know how it's going to affect you personally. I've heard many people talk about having very spiritual experiences and it being an opportunity to really make you feel like you have a place in this universe by sharing this experience with the rest of the folks. It's hard to put into words. And I wasn't even sure actually at the time that it ended. I thought, you know, did I get a lot out of it? Like, did I feel something significant? I was sort of questioning my own, you know, process. And it wasn't until actually about a month or so later when a friend showed the video recording of us all observing this event that, you know, the sky fully went into totality. And all I could hear was myself in the background going, oh my God, this is incredible. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I got the full impact of it. Because it's so short. I mean, you can wait your whole entire life for something that only lasts a few minutes, but it's so profound and it's so significant. And, you know, on both a personal level, there's just a tremendous amount of, I think, appreciation for the rarity of these events that happen, and for the fact that our moon is its size and its distance from us in an exact ratio to the size of our sun and our sun's distance, that we can have total solar eclipses. I mean, that alone is so serendipitous. So I really look forward to hearing all about the experiences that people have all over the hill country for many, many years after this happens. People recounting like I am about something that happened in 2017 and say, oh yeah, I was there back in 2024.
Well, so the one in 2017, in the path of totality, what was the time in 2017 that you got to see?
We had a little, if I recall correctly, we had a little less than 2.5 minutes.
And what do you call that? Just the time? Is there a duration?
So that's totality. So there's sort of a few different terms. One is contact. So first contact is when the moon just starts to cross over the sun. And then second contact is when it fully covers the sun, and that's when totality begins. And that's when it's safe to take off your solar observing glasses or equipment. Third contact is when it comes out of totality, and then fourth contact is that last point where the moon moves off of the sun. But that period of totality, we know based on mathematics and where we are in the solar system in relationship to the sun and the moon, that at most we can have roughly about 7.5 minutes as the longest possible opportunity for totality. We're very fortunate here in the hill country that most places on the center line will have almost 4.5 minutes. So, well over almost twice what we had in 2017. So it gives folks a great opportunity to observe it and maybe, look through various different equipment, whether it's a solar safe binoculars or telescopes. And it's a tremendous opportunity scientifically. There's a lot of things that we cannot do, elements of the sun and the corona that we can't research in any artificial manner. We can only do it at the time of a total solar eclipse. So it's a rare opportunity for folks in those fields to really, in that small period of time, do what they need to do to learn more about the sun.
I believe I read somewhere, it might have been in Michael Zeller's book, where everyone can download an app and become a scientist. And you I guess you get the app and then you do all the prompts, like you can check wherever, and it's I guess it's tracking your location, and then it's picking up information through the app once you turn it on during the eclipse. And then all that information gets relayed back to, I don't know if it's NASA that's doing it. It might be NASA.
I think NASA's partnered with them, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I thought that was really cool, and people, I hope a lot of people do it for the 2024 one. Is that something that y'all got a chance to do, or was it around during the time?
It wasn't around then. There were different programs that were typically spearheaded by similar types of organizations or through universities. I know there were a lot of areas where they had designated individuals that they knew were going to be on the path, and they were recording specific data or taking specific measurements, or whether, photography and whatnot. But, prior to 2017, the last time there was a total eclipse in the United States was, I believe, in 1979.
Oh, wow.
So it's been since the 70s. And we did not have internet, obviously, to the level that we have it now. And I think 2017 kind of snuck up on folks. A lot of folks were not anticipating it or expecting it. And so after that occurred, the idea of observing eclipses, the idea of learning more about them, became much more commonplace. So this 2024 experience is probably going to be one of the most viewed eclipses in the United States. They're calculating roughly 31.5 million people live on the path of totality alone. So that's roughly, 1/10 of our country's population isn't even really going to have to go anywhere. So that's pretty remarkable to know that many people are going to get to experience that, let alone the folks that are going to be traveling to see it. So I think this is going to be, out of the previous eclipse and obviously the one in the 70s before that, it's going to be the most talked about, the most propagated information on social media. I think it's really going to open up a lot of people's eyes, and I think we're going to see a lot more interest and probably education about eclipses. So it's pretty monumental.
And then, so yeah, that's one huge event happening. But right before that, we're so fortunate here in the Hill Country to be hosting another pretty awesome eclipse. And 6 months before in October of 2023. It's the annular eclipse. Have you ever experienced an annular eclipse?
I've been trying to recall back, and I feel like I have at one point in time, but nothing that sticks out in memory. So I'm sort of taking this as my first official annular eclipse, which does mean, you have to wear safe observing wear at all points in time, but it's a different type of phenomena. So in this case, the moon is going to be farther away from us. So it will not be able to cover the entirety of the sun. So you have this, what they're called the ring of fire. So sort of the annulus, where we get the word for annular eclipse from. So that's a different phenomenon altogether. And it'll be that sort of ushering in. So kind of introduce folks to eclipses if they're not familiar already, and then get them prepared for 6 months later for the total experience. And you're right, we're very fortunate in the Hill Country, especially, where you are right now in Concan and Vanderpool, to be at those crossroads where both eclipses will be visible.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. And I know a lot of the folks here, the community is really starting to get behind it, and there is a lot of work to be done. But we got a little bit of time. So, but I think it'll all work out the way it's supposed to. And especially having you in the Hill Country Alliance there as a resource is going to be very helpful for any community who is having a plan for these events. But so aside from being involved with the Hill Country Alliance and everything that you do with that, well, I guess before that, I learned something today that you mentioned earlier, that October is what?
Hill Country Night Sky Month.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So when did they start doing that? And
so this is our third Hill Country Night Sky Month. So it started in 2020. And, it's an opportunity to sort of capitalize on the night sky movement and education. So we try to work with our groups, with our friends groups, and with partners to just put a little bit more extra emphasis on educating the public. It's a great opportunity for groups to go to their cities and their counties and get proclamations and get them on board with understanding the importance for protecting the night skies. We have a lot of groups that will put on extra star parties. There's several counties that do all kinds of challenges and competitions, art competitions, music challenges. We have a fair number of counties that have gotten the local restaurants to participate in outdoor candlelight dinner during that month. So it's just a great opportunity to, get folks outside, especially as the weather improves and gets a little bit cooler, get them looking up more, and just understanding how valuable our night skies here in the Hill Country are, and how important it is to preserve that, not just for the people who live here now, but for the next generation and the next generation after that.
Mm-hmm. What is the biggest... there obviously you have a lot of challenges that you deal with when you're trying to promote dark skies and light, get rid of light pollution and educate people with light pollution. What are some challenges that you have to deal with whenever you're having to educate or teach or show people or communities about this? Because I know there's some common misconceptions with light and at night. What are some of those things?
A lot of it is just education. Most people aren't familiar with light pollution to begin with, especially if they live in major metropolitan areas. They're constantly embroiled in it. They exist in nothing but the light pollution. So it's almost like you can't see the forest through the trees. So there's definitely challenges that we face with helping people understand that more light doesn't necessarily mean being more safe. The emphasis is on the right kind of light, the right temperature, making sure it's shielded so that the light only goes where it needs to, and that the light is directed to go to where it needs to. Glare is a tremendous safety hazard that most people think is a benefit to making their home or their business more safe. But unfortunately, it's tremendously detrimental, and it's actually less safe in the long run. So I think that's probably one of the largest misconceptions that people have. And the other is just, making them aware that it's a thing. Like I said, if you live in a metro area and you've never been under dark skies, you've never seen the Milky Way, you don't necessarily know what you're missing out. So a lot of times it's letting folks know that it is a thing. And if we're fortunate enough, getting them out under dark skies so they can see what they've been missing and hopefully understand what it is that we're fighting so hard to protect. And then they'll tell somebody else, and that down the road, light pollution will unfortunately be popular, but be as popular as, in general knowledge as water pollution is, as pollution of the land and of the air, that they'll see it as a problem. They'll see it as something that needs to be fixed and needs to be attended to. And unfortunately, unlike the other 3 types of pollution, it's the one that we can fix the fastest. I like to say it's you can clear up light pollution at the speed of light just by turning a light switch off. And obviously, we aren't suggesting that everyone turn off all of their exterior lights. We do need some light for general safety and for walking at night, and for illuminating those areas that are utilized. But it is something that, with changing out a bulb or changing out a fixture or changing the direction that a light shines, it's something we can fix instantaneously. And I think that's the most promising thing about light pollution is once you educate folks and once they understand the implication and once they learn that it's really a quick fix, to put it mildly, you really get that immediate gratification that we all wish we could get from cleaning up our waters or, improving our air quality.
You mentioned amount of light wasted.
Mm-hmm.
What was the number you mentioned?
So the estimate is that in the United States, we spend approximately $3.3 to $3.5 billion wasting electricity. So that's roughly 1/3 of all outdoor artificial light is shining up into the air. So it's not illuminating a building or a sign or anything physical. It's just shining up into the night sky and serving no other purpose than to do just that. And here in the state of Texas, we estimate that number around $450 to $490 million that's wasted.
That's almost 1/6 of that. About 1/6 of that original number.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're a rather large contributing factor. Yes.
And another interesting thing, you stated earlier that Texas was the only state that didn't have a was it county?
Oh, county authority. Yeah. Yes, to the best of my knowledge. For most regulating, most laws or ordinances. So within the cities, we can work with the cities, and our night sky groups do work with a lot of their communities and their cities to pass ordinances that focus on night sky friendly outdoor lighting. And we're seeing a tremendous movement towards a lot of communities going that direction or amending their already existing lighting ordinances. At the county level, they don't have the ability to authorize that or to generate ordinances. So we try to work with the communities that are unincorporated, with the communities that fall into the ETJ or the extraterritorial jurisdiction areas, which a lot of times just means, speaking with the landowners, speaking with the people that live out there. So until there's some sort of regulating element, a regulating body, we will just continue to sort of boots on the ground movement and talk to folks about what can be done and the benefits that it has, because light pollution is detrimental to every living creature.
Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of folks don't probably think about that. And I know I never did. And it was a huge eye-opener for me whenever I first, y'all held a presentation here. And I think Cliff was here putting it on several years back. And it was so very informative and eye-opening. Not just the waste of money and the not being able to see the stars, and but the effects that it has on nature and the creatures that kind of, what is it? The circadian rhythm gets thrown off because of the lights. They get tricked into thinking that it's not nighttime, or
Mm-hmm.
how does that work?
So for humans, it's crucial to have the dark skies, because it does do just that. It can affect our circadian rhythms. It can affect how we process and create melatonin. So invariably, it's affecting our sleep. It has contributing aspects to almost every type of cancer that occurs with humans. And in a wildlife level, it's detrimental. It wreaks havoc on, animals that use the night sky for navigation. We now know that a lot of whale species use the stars to navigate.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of nocturnal birds, and of course, popular around here, a lot of bats that are affected by the light pollution. There's been a tremendous movement towards what's called Lights Out Texas, which happens during the spring and fall bird migration, where we try to work with cities and with other organizations to ask large skyscrapers in major metro areas to turn off their lights or to adopt night sky friendly lighting, because these large structures with their glass windows are usually the ending for a lot of birds migrating through Texas, of which we have a tremendous amount. It's been shown that artificial light around trees will affect their cycles. So there's been photographic evidence that I've seen where you have a light that is close to one portion of a tree, and you could be in the middle of winter and the tree that's not as exposed to the artificial light it's lost its leaves, or the color of the leaves has turned, and the side that's closest to the artificial light is still lush and green. Wow. So our plants are affected, and we still have a great many number of flowers and different vegetation that relies on nocturnal pollinators that can't necessarily do their job as efficiently if they think it's daytime outside. So every aspect of wildlife, of human life, is affected in one way or another by light pollution. So it's not just for the astronomers; it's really for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Now the whole light in the trees, is that just a certain type of light, or does it apply to all colors of light in trees? Because I've seen where people will. Leo was just showing me the other day. She's like, "Oh, this is cool," and it was someone had put these little boxes right by trees, and I guess wherever this video was at, it was obviously around the forest because there's a lot of big trees. And they lit it up at night, and it was all different colors, and it looked really cool. But I just wonder if that also has a negative impact, if it's like blues and yellows and reds and purples. And
I'm not sure about the color, like Christmas lights in that regard. One of our focuses, one of the sort of tenets of proper night sky lighting is the color temperature. So that is just looking at the color of light. So daytime light, if you walked outside right now, is between about 6,000 to 6,500 degrees Kelvin. It's the same sort of measurement we use to measure the temperature of stars, which also relates to a color. So when you're outside, or when you see these really bright white fluorescent lights, or the bright LED lights that are sort of white, or the ones that are on car headlights that are white and blue, those are at the much higher temperature range that are mostly detrimental. It's where you see a lot of folks using these blue light blocker glasses now, because the computers we use, the electronics we use, emit that same spectrum of light. So the warmer tone that you can get towards the yellow and the orange, and our goal is sort of at or below 3,000 Kelvin. And that's sort of been a suggestion by both the International Dark Sky Association and the Illuminating Engineering Society. Right at that level is where we don't see as much detrimental effects on human health, on wildlife. Again, being properly shielded and properly directed. And of course, any lower in that temperature is beneficial as long as you are using a light that is proper for the activity or the location. Now that is different than lumens. Lumens is a measurement of brightness, whereas we're just talking about a level of color temperature. But I would imagine that in certain areas that utilize that lower temperature light, you're going to see less of an effect on things like trees, and other plant life and other animal life. But obviously, our intention is use light where it's needed. Use the right kind of light, the right color, the right shielding, the right direction. And if you don't need light there, don't use it. That's really the best advice. And there are levels to that too. obviously safety needs to be taken into consideration, and the activity. Whether it's a sports complex, they do need lights for their activity. Or if it's a space that has a lot of foot traffic, you're going to want to have lights so folks know where they're going. But once that activity ceased and the light no longer needs to be on, let's cut it off. Let's, set lights on a timer, or set lights on a motion sensor. But there's no reason for a bright 4,000, 5,000 Kelvin light that shines up in the sky to be on all night long if there's no one for miles.
Yeah, and I think folks can, if they go to the store and look at light bulbs on the packaging, it'll show the number. It'll say 3,000 in numerical. You'll see it. It'll be the numerical 30000. And then it'll have a K at the end, correct?
That's for the Kelvin.
So then and K signifies Kelvin. And so I'm just throwing that out there in case people were wondering, well, how do I know
Absolutely.
what lights are 3,000 Kelvin versus the ones that are 4,000 or 5,000 Kelvin? But that's how you can tell. It's all in the package.
And it wasn't for a very long time. I remember it wasn't too long ago that you'd really have to either do research online or reach out to the manufacturer to determine what that temperature is. And, if you go into the larger hardware stores and facilities, a lot of times they'll have displays of different light color temperatures or different light types. So you can get a sense of, what it's going to look like in your home or on your porch. But more and more information is getting, posted on different boxes of lighting of different types of light bulbs. And there's more information out there and more products becoming more readily available and more economic for homeowners to purchase or business owners.
And another thing that you said earlier, that another person taught me, Steve Irwin, he does astrophotography, and we were kind of talking about that a bit, but he had a green light a few years back, and whenever he was hosting his workshop at night, and then he was kind of explaining like, yeah, this is what you want to use at night because it's good on your eyes. And then you made a good point too with the red light. Using a red light at night, it doesn't attract bugs and mosquitoes, which is a huge problem. So yeah, I think that's good for folks to hear, because I mean, if you're hanging out outside, you definitely don't want the mosquitoes hanging out with you. So.
Exactly.
I don't know if y'all mentioned it already. I missed the whole conversation because Luna needed a nap. But you showed me on your phone that you can turn your phone into a red screen. Yes. How do you do that, and why do you do that?
Depending on the different type of phone, there's different processes you go through. It's usually, at least on my iPhone, it's something I found under the accessibility features. You can change a filter setting, and I know pretty much any modern phone of mine's a couple of years old, so it's not even the newest version. You can go online and it'll show you exactly what you need to do, and you can change that color. Obviously, I use it and have my phones and my tablet set to red because, as an amateur astronomer, the spectrum where red falls, it does not affect your eyes the same way the white light does. So if you've ever had your eyes dilated in a doctor's office, that's similar to what a bright white or flash would do. Is it dilates your eyes. So for a second, it actually may seem that you're seeing clearer in nighttime. But what that is your eyes suddenly open wide and is trying to gather in as much information, and it's no longer night adaptive to the point where you really heavily focus on small details like looking through an eyepiece. It's also safer for the wildlife. It's not distracting, and especially because all of our astronomical observing we typically do is outdoors, it does not tend to attract as many bugs, which is very important, as you said. So anytime you're in an environment with amateur astronomers, we always try to use red light so it is not as distracting. And it also doesn't ruin our adaptive night vision, which a single flash of light can set you back 30 to 45 minutes before you get to that dark adapted point.
I have another question. I don't know if y'all asked it already. Y'all might have already tapped on it. But when you were talking about dark skies and light bulbs and all of that, what is the absolute easiest, cheapest first step that somebody could take towards helping with dark skies?
Great question. Go home, Go to wherever you live and take a look at your outdoor lighting. It's one of those sort of scenarios where it's like, the first step, the first change starts at home. It starts locally. So for me, even though I've been involved in, this type of work and in astronomy and science outreach for a long time, we have 3 outdoor lights at our home, and we almost never turn them on unless we, our dogs are getting spooked by something. We want to see what's going on. So they were always kept off, and we never really thought much of them. But as I took on this position and started to learn more and help educate others, I had to look back on myself and go, wow, my night skylights and my yard are not very friendly at all. I've got one of those 2-headed floodlights on my back that somebody installed before we ever bought the house. And the front has, 2 lights that have a little bit of cover to them, but you can still see the bulb, which is not night sky friendly. So for me, it was sort of assessing the lights that I have and going to my local Lowe's and finding night sky friendly fixtures and getting ready to change those out. So it really does truly start at the home. And from there, it's, maybe you talk to a next door neighbor, and maybe you notice that they have the same lights that you do. Maybe the house is probably built around the same time. And then maybe it's looking at your own business. What changes can you make there? And then a lot of it is just, continuously talking about it, making it a part of the conversation. The more we talk about it, the more we normalize and make these terms, night sky friendly, dark sky friendly, light pollution, common knowledge, and encourage people to learn more about it. And that's the only way we're going to really gain traction is making people educated and aware that it's a problem, and that in many regards, it's a fairly easy solution.
So how would you know that if you want to replace your fixture, how would you know that it's dark sky friendly? Mm-hmm. Will it say on the package?
Sometimes it will.
Okay.
The thing that we really try to encourage folks to look for is that it is a fixture that is what they call IDA approved. So that's approved by the International Dark Sky Association. And their website also has a fixture seal of approval that you can actually search by store, you can search by manufacturer. So you can look up a light manufacturer and say, was this approved by the IDA? Because not all light fixtures are going to be night sky friendly. And it's a term that is not widely defined by one specific definition. What one person or one organization may deem night sky friendly is not necessarily the same as another. So you have to, take the time to educate yourself about what night sky friendly really means. And as I've said several times before, it's making sure that the bulb you put in there is the right color temperature. Unfortunately, with most fixtures you would buy for your home, you can control that. Mm-hmm. It's making sure that it's shielded. So that means that it has a cover that does not allow the light to protrude or trespass above the horizon, so above that horizontal plane. And that also helps keep the light from bothering your next door neighbors or, folks that are walking by. It's making sure that the bulb itself is not visible. So if you're standing in your front yard and you're looking at your front porch light and you can see the bulb, it's not night sky friendly. That means that light is coming directly to your eyes and it's not focused where it needs to be. And then, of course, making sure that that fixture has the light directed downward or towards whatever feature or walkway you're highlighting and not anywhere else.
Yes, that's very important. And you also mentioned some on your, or you had a little pamphlet that you were showing us at the visitor center that had some examples of what those fixtures that you can purchase would look like. Mm-hmm. Is that something that can be downloaded from your website, that brochure you had?
So that is our Night Sky issue paper. And yes, that's on the Hill Country Alliance website, along with all of our other issue papers in PDF form. And that's a very widely used graphic. It's referred to as sort of the unacceptable, acceptable lighting. And that's definitely found on websites like the one that the International Dark Sky Association has. And it's a great visual because all kinds of lighting are featured there, whether it's, something you would see in a shopping mall or in your own home or, in every environment. And then it gives a very clear, here's the alternative. Here's just the slight variation in that lamp where the light bulb is recessed more, makes the difference between it being friendly or not friendly. So it's a good visual aid to use. because it does show so many different varieties of lighting that one person could have on their home or in their place of business.
Interesting.
When we start looking into environmental issues and pollutions and all the different types of things that are destroying our world, it's so overwhelming and it's so daunting and it feels so heavy. And one of the things I saw in the little brochure, it was talking about how light pollution is one of like the pollutions that can be reversed, like easily reversed. And that feels so like hopeful, you know, like this is such an easy thing to do and an easy thing that can be reversed, because some pollutions can't be. And, you know, we're never going to get rid of some of the certain pollutions that we have. But with light pollution, we can. Like, I just feel so much hope with that, and that it is a reversible type of pollution. But
I think that's definitely something that fills me with a fair bit more promise. That if there's one type of pollution that we can amend and we can get rid of and hopefully continue to maintain, it's light pollution. As I was telling Jake earlier, one of the things I like to say is that you can fix light pollution at the speed of light by just flipping a switch. Now, granted, it's not that easy, especially when you look at, you know, large cities. We've been doing a lot of work with the city of San Antonio, helping to bring a lot of their ordinances, including the one that involves the buffer zones around the military installations, up to the current level of, you know, 3,000 Kelvin or lower. They operate in an environment doing nighttime trainings, which it's very hard for them to do any training directed towards the south end of their bases, because that looks directly upon the city of San Antonio, which has a lot of light pollution. So it's not something as simple as, you know, we just tell the city of San Antonio and, you know, CPS Energy, hey, we just need you to turn off the lights. You know, we do have to take into consideration, you know, safety aspects and the fact that, you know, this is not necessarily financially feasible for some communities. It might be a situation where, you know, they can't replace all their lights at once, but maybe as a light needs replacing, as it needs changing out or repairing, they can then opt to go in with a more friendly light fixture, which in the overall will save them money, will save energy. And if it's newer technology, which it almost always is, it's going to require less maintenance down the road too. So that's also, you know, taking a bit of the financial burden off of communities and cities. So it's a lengthy process, but it's one that, again, we're hopeful for. And, you know, every person I talk to about the issues of light pollution and preserving the night skies, you know, once they learn about the problem, they learn it's fixable, it's solvable, and that there's something they can do about it, even if it's just in their own home. You know, they're very positive. They're on board. They feel like they've got something worth fighting for. So it's just, you know, even if it's just boots on the ground, talking to one person at a time, the more people we talk to, the more people we educate, the more youth we can educate about this issue. You know, the future leaders of our communities here, the better off we're going to be.
And you've also had luck with power companies, correct? So it's not something that's totally out of the realm of possibility of getting these power companies on board, which I think is a huge step in the right direction. And I hope that y'all continue to make more progress with more power companies that are located not just in the Hill Country, but I mean throughout Texas. And on another note, you also mentioned some workshops that you have coming up that you're working on. Can you talk about that yet? Or
they're sort of in the beginning stages and mostly surrounding the preparation for the eclipse, but also ones that we, you know, hope to incorporate more into our night skies work and in the realm of just, you know, educating educators. So with regards to the eclipse, we're hoping to have in, you know, the not too distant future workshops that will allow you know, librarians, school teachers, park interpretive rangers to learn more about the eclipses, learn how to prepare for them, learn the different ways they can be viewed, not just through solar safe glasses, but pretty much arming folks with the knowledge and the ability to teach others so that no individual is without the ability to experience it fully. And that's a lot of what our friends groups really try to do our Friends of the Night Sky groups, and sort of their core mission is just that outreach and education. So a lot of our groups will put on their own workshops and put on their own trainings, and train others to go out and how to talk and how to speak to the points and the importance of light pollution. So it just becomes cyclical. We learn and we teach others, and they go off and teach others, and it's sort of like if one person tells two people and they tell two people, it starts to sort of overflow.
Yeah. What is this Friends group that you're talking about?
So the Hill Country Alliance was instrumental in helping to start groups in communities, mostly in counties themselves, with just individuals that are interested in volunteering in the effort to combat light pollution. So we have groups that have formed in smaller communities within the counties, and some groups that are county-wide, and they are just volunteers donating their time to support the mission. In some cases, they go to schools and give presentations. A lot of them will work with other communities and other parks to receive designation. It's called International Dark Sky Place, which is a program that is put on and supported by the International Dark Sky Association. And that's usually a rather lengthy process to become acknowledged and to meet all of the criteria. So our friends groups help out in a lot of those respects. They also work with the Hill Country Alliance in supporting two programs that we have, which is the Night Sky Friendly Business Program and the Night Sky Friendly Neighborhood Program, which is sought out to identify businesses and homeowners associations and private owner associations and acknowledge them for the work they're doing in preserving the night skies. So it's, again, like a lot of boots on the ground sort of activity, and really getting the individuals directly focusing on the businesses and the residents and the people in their community. They know their community best. They know where the trouble spots are. They know the partners to form to help continue to foster this sort of alliance and continue this work. So we do our best to, either help start groups, sort of as we saw building today and at our meeting for Uvalde County, or in other ways, help support groups by providing resources, education, pretty much anything we can do to foster their interest in making sure that their community is night sky friendly. So I think we're at 14 groups in total across 9 counties in the Hill Country, and it's growing day by day, including starting today in Uvalde County. Yeah,
we were talking about getting one started here for our area in Uvalde County, and it was a relief to hear that you had resources for parties who were interested in doing that, or communities who were interested in doing that. And I'm just like, oh, that's going to save us so much time. Mm-hmm. You have resources for those folks like us who are interested in starting that. So that's great.
I'm really excited about the resources that you have for kids and that you're developing and working on. I'm so excited for that, to even be able to share those resources with our guests and have activities for them to do, and they can learn while they're out here. And I'm just super excited for that. So once those are ready, I will be like,
absolutely,
pass them this way.
It's been so delightful, finding the resources we have found so far, and the number of books that are out there. When I first took on this position, I was bound and determined to find more than just the 5 or 6 books that were sort of put out there as being night sky friendly. And we now have 4 pages of book references on our website of both fiction and nonfiction for adults and for youth, that in some aspect talk about the importance of light pollution or talk about the absence of night skies. And we have 2 authors here in the Hill Country as well who have written books. So there's definitely a need for it. And I think really when it comes to it, we can educate each other. We can educate adults and organizations and corporations and businesses all we want. But if we don't start including our youth and our students and really fostering that interest and that emphasis that, this is the legacy you have, if we don't do something about it, then we're not going to be able to make a change. That sort of movement, that sort of direction has to start from the youth, has to start from the students. And I think, as I mentioned in the meeting, there's nothing more convincing and compelling than a child who's passionate about a subject and will not stop talking about it until you agree to participate in it. And I think one of the other things I mentioned was, once you know what appropriate night sky friendly lighting looks like, you can't unsee it. Once you know what kind of lighting is not acceptable, you cannot unsee it. So knowing that it needs to be a certain temperature, knowing it needs to be shielded, knowing it needs to be directed, hearing it now on this podcast, you're probably going to start noticing lights a lot more. And it's going to start becoming much more evident of just how much improper lighting there is out there. So kind of sneaking that in sort of subliminally.
Yes, yeah. Manifesting it. But I am super excited that you took the time out to do this and share and some of the work that you're doing. And I hope that people listening can't unhear and then unsee what they've heard and start paying attention to light at night and any light pollution sources, and hopefully take action.
I was saying earlier how, when I walk out on my porch and I look up and I'm looking at the Milky Way, there's nothing like that. I'm just looking up at the sky like, how in the world is this real? Like, it doesn't even look real, the stars in the Milky Way. And I can't imagine if we lost that and we can't see it anymore. And that this is one of the few places that I have access to where I can see the Milky Way at night, and we could lose that.
You're the lucky ones. They figure that 80% of our global population lives where they cannot see the Milky Way at night. They step off their porch. I step off my porch. I can see the moon if it's up. I can see, Jupiter and Saturn have been up lately. They're very easy to point out. They're very bright in the sky. Can occasionally pick out a few stars, but I'm not seeing constellations. I'm definitely not seeing the Milky Way. And so it's traumatic that so much of our world, so much that our global population is lost without really even knowing it. And at the rate we're losing it now, which is speculated to be about 2% of the night sky every year, that's not sounding very hopeful. But again, there's hope in the fact that we can make slight changes that improve things. And it is a problem and a pollution that we know how to solve, that we can solve. And I hope to see it solved, at least in the hill country, in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to try. We're going to try to do our part out here.
Yeah, and we always, this part of the hill country, we're so close to two major hubs, San Antonio and Austin. I mean, even Houston and Dallas is not too far either. We're certainly a lot closer than Big Bend is to all these metro areas. And with folks moving out here to Concan, they move out here to escape the city life, but yet they forget that the whole reason they came out here was because of how unique it is, how dark the skies are. And we just want to give you a friendly reminder, don't forget, be aware, and do not contribute to the light pollution out here not just in Uvalde County, but in all of the hill country, rural parts of the hill country. Leave the city the way it is, and don't bring it those negative impacts to the rural parts of Texas. That way we can protect our night skies. And my hope is that people would be open to listening and take interest into taking action for themselves, at the very least, to not contribute and to change and reduce. So that's my hope for this podcast.
That'd be my hope too. If each person who hears this podcast, goes home and changes out one light fixture on their home and tells one person about light pollution that maybe doesn't already know about it, that to me is a tremendous step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
That's what I want to ask real quick. So that's good, right? Changing one light bulb, you don't have to change everything all at once. It's not all or nothing, right? Like
it's not an all or nothing. It's
gradual.
there are various levels. If you have a light fixture at home that you look at and it's not shielded and you can see the bulb and it's not the right temperature, maybe you don't have the finances to switch out all your lights. Just go switch out the bulb. Let's change the color temperature on that bulb. That's one step in the right direction. If it's shining up and you have the ability to turn it around and shine down, that's a good step. No effort is bad. No, it's not 100%, but any amount of change for the better is a change in the right direction. So I'm not necessarily saying, everybody must comply 100% right now, from the get-go. Any bit helps. And it's just, it will come to a point where, hopefully it's second nature that when you go out and, you buy a new property, I'd love to purchase your home, but, I'd really love to see those lights night sky friendly. Maybe that's something we can negotiate, or, maybe it's you sign on to a business and go, wow, I really love to work here, but I really wish you had, night sky friendly practices. Let's talk about what we can change the lights. Any conversation keeps the ball rolling, keeps the dialogue, and just makes it, again, more common knowledge. And the more we're talking about it, the more we're sharing it with people. You can't unhear it. You can't unsee it, to the point where, just get fed up with it and just say, fine, let's just do it. Let's be night sky friendly. Because there's no detriment. You're going to save money. You're going to protect the environment. You're going to improve your health and the health and well-being of others and wildlife around you. You're going to make the plants happier, help their cycles, help their living. I have yet to find a negative to becoming night sky friendly.
Well, I think this is a good place to wrap up. But before we completely close out, I just want to ask, is there something that maybe you wanted to share or talk about? Or is there something exciting besides the workshops and the eclipse that you have in the works that you're working on? Or
I would say if people listening to this podcast want to learn more or are interested in how they can help, feel free to reach out to us, the Hill Country Alliance. Seek out your local night sky friendly group, or just a group of like-minded individuals. Maybe there are enough folks in your community, and you might do like the Uvalde folks and just meet together for an impromptu gathering and decide you're going to create a group. But know that you're not alone in this challenge and in this mission, and that there's a lot more of us out there than it may seem. And like I said, every little bit helps, and in the long run, I think we'll just be a better society for being more conscientious about our impact, just like any other impact we place on the world. And go out and look up.
Yes, definitely. And I just want to say thank you again for coming out here and putting on the presentation. And I hope that you continue to put more presentations out here, put more presentations on out here in this area, and more folks get to see it and experience it for themselves, folks who have never attended. And you also host these presentations, not just here, but other places. Is there a time and place information where people can go? Maybe they can check to see if will it be on your website, your next presentation place?
The presentations for the most part are always sort of based on request. A lot of our friends groups will, put on regular presentations either with their local astronomy club or with their local library. But if there's a group or a business or a community or a organization that wants, a night sky presentation, all they have to do is reach out to the Hill Country Alliance, and we'll see what we can do about accommodating you. We want to make sure everybody knows about it. We want to spread the word.
Yay. Yeah. So thank you again, and thanks for taking time to do this.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
We had an amazing time, and we learned, again, new stuff every time. And we look forward to having you again sometime in the future. So maybe we can catch up and
see how much change and improvement and work we've been doing here.
Absolutely.
There's great promise in this area, and a lot of people passionate about maintaining this for themselves and making sure that, our hill country and Concan and Uvalde County stay pristine and natural and dark.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dawn. And we look forward to the next time. And all right, folks, thanks for popping in and listening with us. And if you have a chance, just like and subscribe if you're listening to the YouTube channel, or leave us a review and give us a rating on any of the podcast platforms. So we appreciate all your support, and we will see y'all next time. Hasta luego.
Bye.
Bye.